Good evening. Welcome in Daily UPSC editorial audio program. India's undereducated young, the Times of India. Millions of students who have been to good schools and are going to good universities are growing up on videos, not books. This is There is no big purpose, no real interest in the world or in elections. Chetan Bhagat is an Indian author, columnist, and screenwriter. A recent video of a student of a private Indian university taking part in a political protest has provided much mirth and laughter online because of how utterly clueless they appear to be about what their protest is about. They are carrying placards but just cannot explain these. Indeed, they are unable to string two original sentences together in response to a reporter's simple question about their protest. The specific college and even the cause of the protest are in a way irrelevant to the volumes. The video, simultaneously hilarious and sad, speaks about the average Indian college student today. Let's call them politely the under educated class of India. To be clear, the video features privileged student. We can assume that their parents enrolled them in quality schools before sending them to an expensive private university. These students dress well and carry expensive phones, and yet, once they open their mouth, it all seems to have been for naught. The internet memes are funny, but this is a serious issue. There is an entire class, probably in the millions of Indian graduates and would be graduates, who are absolutely subpar in their ability to think, communicate, understand, analyze, and problem solving anything. They have completed 12 years of school and 3 4 years of college. Yet, as the saying goes, if some students drink at fountain of knowledge, these students just gargle. Across India, the average college student delays a frightening level of incompetence. It is not about that one village idiot. We are talking about entire villages of idiots. How on earth will we become a Viksit country when our young generation refuses to engage their brain, even as the world adopts artificial intelligence? How do we make do with so much unintelligence? This is not about the top colleges, nor is it being said that there are no bright students in India. Indian students have gone on to become unicorn founders, investors, top lawyers, and surgeons. Our top students are amongst the world's best. However, these are exceptions. When it comes to all students, things are quite dim about the middle of the curve. Surveys indicate that more than half of the Indian graduates are unemployable. Why is this the case? How did the Indian student become so stupid? This too is in the privileged class, where they are brought up with relatively high resources. We often blame our outdated educational system. That may partly be the reason for this crisis, but true reasons run deeper. They are hard to listen to. Here are the top three. The non-thinking family. Many Indian families, even with means, do not encourage their children to read, write, think, analyze, opine, and solve problems. How many middle class and upper class families sit at the dining table and discuss books, current affairs, global concerns, self reflections? Not many. Instead, we discuss the food, how ghee and jaggery are good for us, which achar is the best, who is getting married to whom, reality shows, cricket, which web series to watch, or which Bollywood star or industrialist is getting married. Worst is when we are on our phones, even at the dining table, not engaging with our family at all. This is a breeding ground for intellectual stagnation. No national educational policy, no updated curriculum, no college can do much when the family itself brews dullness. The aversion to read, somehow watching videos has become the new cool, and books a waste of time. I don't read books, I prefer watching videos, is what my college students say proudly. What uh, uh, what they are actually saying is, I don't want to make the mental effort to read. For heaven's sake, please read. to understand stuff you have to read. That's why we study using books in school and colleges. Would you trust a doctor who says I never read a medical book, but I have watched a lot of medical videos? To the addiction to distractions, the average Indian students wants a good life. This includes a nice iPhone, an attractive dating partner, expensive clothes, online shopping sprees, and hanging out at trendy bars and restaurants. A constant stream of content from social media fuel these desires by only showing students more of what they already enjoy. As a result, the student gets lost in this world of consumptions and fleeting desires. Their minds have literally no time to consider their life's purpose. But I want some nice, easy job. It is all they offer when asked about their career goals. There's no focus, passion, or desire to make a mark on the world, excel in a particular field, or build a meaningful life. This mentality is often give me this lifestyle somehow, even if my parents indirectly subsidize it. Please stop being distracted by whatever is keeping you intellectually stagnant and underachieving. Learn about the world, find your place as a productive member of society, set challenging goals, and stay focused on achieving them. As our nation strives to develop, we need not only physical physical infra like roads, ports, and airports, but also human infra, millions of sharp young minds with the ability to think critically and execute a better future for themselves and the nation. A generation lacking in intellect will potentially lead to us being indirectly colonized again by the developed world. We must think of ourselves, someone someone else will do the thinking of us. Net metering key to rooftop sunshine. The Economic Times. Government of India's plan to train 1 lakh people to install, maintain, and service rooftop solar panels and develop an entrepreneurial ecosystem of vendors of implementing the PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana is a move in the right direction. This initiative holds the potential to significantly increase the adoption of rooftop solar system among the scheme's target household. However, to fully realize its benefit, Government of India needs to address structural issues related to electricity market design and tariff, power purchase contracts, and infrastructure requirements. The promise of 300 units of free electricity for setting up rooftop solar panel is attractive. However, since many states give free power, setting up solar panels seems like an additional effort with no significant benefit. Outreach to target consumers and increase their awareness of the benefit of switching to rooftop solar must be an integral effort of this program. The on-ground outreach in Ayodhya for rooftop solar could serve uh, as a template in other towns and cities. A major impediment is the slow rollout of the net metering system. This is essential to account for electricity produced, consumed, and put into the grid by households that generate solar power. Without proper net metering, the economic incentive for these households is lost. Distribution companies are not keen to undertake the investment required for net metering because of the varying cost of power. Discom Discoms have not warmed up to rooftop solar because of the long-term power purchase agreements they are locked in. Success of the scheme hinges on getting all stakeholders to the table, addressing the challenges they face, and fostering a collaborative approach. Click, Clickbait paper The Hindu. Linking demographic shifts directly to state action is problematic. A recent working paper titled The Share of Religious Minorities Across Country Analysis 1950 to 2015 by Shamika Ravi, a a, creden- a cre- credentialed credentialed economist and member of the Economic Advisory Council (EAC) to the Prime Minister and two co-authors, has sparked a political firestorm, dra- dredging familiar anxieties of a decline in the in the proportion of Hindus in India's population. Freely accessible, the paper draws on a dataset religious characteristics of states dataset 2017 RCSDEM, where two US affiliated researchers have compiled an extensive dataset of religio-demographic changes in 167 countries by defining majority and minority religions based on countries' official census data. The RCSDEM quantifies changes in the population of those professing a country's major reason. There is no discussion on the cause or factors driving these changes. The current paper does little other than reproduce this data set, explain it, and highlight what has been known since 2011 in India and discussed threadbare since that the share of Hindus as a proportion of India's population declined from 84.68% to 78% 1950 to 2015. Muslim proportion meanwhile has risen from 9.84% to 14%. They underline how most countries have seen their majority religion adherent decline. They note that the Indian experience vis-a-vis the proportional decline of Hindus is exceptional. Is the In the light of broad trends globally, they reiterate that they make no causal links between a specific state action and demographic shift. They note, however, that in the immediate South Asian neighborhood, this 7% relative decline was second only to Myanmar's 10% decline of the majority Theravada Buddhist. From here, the authors make, without analysis or data, a deduction. Thus, the rise in Muslim numbers proved media reports and UN human rights reports, which they cite of discrimination and violence against Muslims in India, were false. They single out Pakistan and Bangladesh to underline the demographic shocks, reduce the proportion of the largest minorities Hindus there. The authors thus break their own rule of not having a causative explanation of demographic change by ascribing rising Muslim numbers in India to progressive policies and inclusive institutions. The authors would then have to explain if India's Parsi and Jain populations whose number they reference are declining due to hostile state policies. Given that prosaic explanations of declining fertility rates across religions and economic migration explain some of these known India trends, it is perplexing why the EAC would lend its sanction to a work that is at best incomplete and at worst disindigenous. Thank you.